Stefan, hi. Thank you for agreeing to talk to me.
Pleasure, Stu.
Before we begin, something I always do with every video is get an agreement that we can both record, we can both publish where we like, but we cannot edit. Are you
Oh yeah,
okay with that? Yeah,
I'm
wonderful.
not going to record, but you're free to record me.
Okay, well, in that case, I will send you the link to what I
Yeah.
do, and it won't be edited. I'll stick my livery on it, so it'll have Godfrey Guide on it, but I won't edit anything because I don't like the way that people sometimes edit to misrepresent the other person and make them look
Yeah, of
stupid. I
course.
think that
And
that's just
I
that's
don't
just
mean
unethical.
I don't mind you editing out dead air or anything like that, but that's
Well,
up to you.
occasionally I'll do that, but I will always ask you if we can.
Yeah, of course. I
And
appreciate
that's
that.
not really for your benefit. I get that you said that, but it's
Yeah.
so that somebody else couldn't accuse me. Oh, there was a hot jump there. What was that about?
So it was worthless time that people didn't need to see.
Yeah. So, but thank you for that.
Yeah.
We we, we were talking about whether or not atheism is a worldview. And I'm just of the opinion that it's not.
No.
It's a single position on a single question. But you started talking about theology. What did you mean by that?
Well, I do believe that atheism is still a theology. It's the lack of a theology, but in order to reject theology, you have to acknowledge it exists. And in order to reject theology, you have to be a non-theist or an
Well,
atheist.
if we define theology as the study of beliefs about God,
Yes.
and I'm being very precise, I'm not saying the study of God because I don't think there is one. I actually think that theology is a study of made up stuff. Then, yeah, I agree, theology exists. I just, as an atheist, I reject it.
I understand that point. I would just disagree on the fact that theology is the study of things that are made up. I believe that it goes a little bit deeper than that.
Well, okay. But nonetheless, we seem to agree that atheism is simply not accepting that stuff in the same way that me not accepting leprechauns does
Yes.
not mean I first have to believe leprechauns exist.
Yeah, of course. And you couldn't call atheism a worldview because there's multiple types of atheism. There's Buddhist atheism,
Absolutely. Yeah.
Shintoism, which is an atheistic theology.
Well, quite.
Like
Put
there
it
are
under atheism.
atheistic theologies. That's also why I say that atheism is a theology, because there are atheistic theologies. So such as Shintoism,
Yeah, Buddhism. Yeah, there are.
Buddhism. Yeah.
But they're not. That's the policy of composition, isn't it? That
Mm,
one part of a set does not represent the entire set.
exactly.
There are theological viewpoints within atheism,
Mm,
but atheism is not in itself theological. In the
okay.
same way that there are cream cakes in confectionery, but
Mm,
confectionery is not cream cakes.
no, but there are still cream cakes in the confectionery, just as there is theology in atheism.
Yeah. So you can say, and I would agree with you, there is a subset of atheists who are interested in theology until you get too literal about theology, of course, because theo means God.
Yes.
If you are an atheist, you don't believe in God. So why then would you be
Okay, so you
an
don't believe
atheist?
in God, but you don't. It's so yeah, that's it. You don't believe in God, not the belief in God. It's you don't believe in the God itself. It's that you don't believe in the belief itself. So that's why I would say that atheism is still a theology. It's a bit of a
Okay, I
I know that's
understand.
a bit of a run on. That's the best way I can think to put it.
Okay, well, let me give you what I think is a comparable situation.
Mm,
I'm an anti-Nazi activist. I understand Nazism. I've spent quite a lot of time learning about Nazism. That doesn't mean I accept it.
of
So I
course.
could be I can be an atheist and understand theology.
Oh yeah, of course.
Doesn't
And
mean I
I never
accept
meant to
it.
say that. like just how I've studied theology of other religions, especially the other Abrahamic ones that I share a God with.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Well, thank you for acknowledging that.
yeah,
So many Christians pretend otherwise.
I don't know how you could. We all
That's my
derive
wife.
we all derive from the same eyewitness accounts or archaeological texts, you know. Um,
Yeah, I agree. Thank you for acknowledging that.
yeah. Um, you know,
This might be one of the most reasonable conversations I've had,
well, I think if you take, especially when it comes to things like the Old Testament, with even a shred of literal, well, not that there is literacy in it, but it's not meant to be taken literally, especially eyewitness accounts from people from before the Greeks,
See, I wonder about that
I do
because
too.
whilst I accept that it makes sense to me that there is a lot of metaphor and a lot of allegory in both the Old and the New Testaments. And I always go back to Gregory the Great's principles of exegesis, which is literal, allegorical, moral, and eschatological.
Yes.
What I'm concerned about, or not really concerned about, but the question I have is how do you know which category to put which passage into? And in particular, how do you know which are literal and which are allegorical?
I don't. I'm not the judge. I can have my own personal judgment, but I have no higher or divine authority to categorize people based on the content of their souls and character. I can do it in my time here as a person in this earthly realm, but I could find a position of power and authority and enact it in that way if I felt I was suited to do that. But how do I categorize people? Personally, with my objective morality, which I know we contend on.
Well, yeah, but I'm not asking about how you categorize people. I'm asking how you
Oh,
categorize passages. So,
oh, passages.
for example, Noah's flood, is that literal or allegorical?
Which one?
Noah's flood.
Oh, Noah's flood. Well, that was a literal one. We have archaeological evidence of that from other cultures.
Well, we have archaeological evidence of floods.
A great flood, of a great flood.
We
Is it
don't have
Noah?
archaeological evidence of a worldwide flood. For example, the Chinese didn't notice it.
Are you sure about that? I thought that there
Yeah,
was
I'm
many
pretty certain.
examples across Eastern and Western Asia.
There are plenty of examples of regional
Oh,
floods all across the world, but there
in
is no
mainland
example.
China, I could see that, such as places like Tibet, where a flood wouldn't reach. Same with there was no great flood story here in my where I now was born and live, which is the Rocky Mountains of North America. There was no great flood story, even in all of our findings of the what we could recover from the Native Americans that were here. They had no great flood story the closer you got in. So
So it wasn't a worldwide flood.
it wasn't a world. Well, it was a coastal wide flood,
Okay.
which
And it
at
did
the
not
time
wipe
you
out.
have to acknowledge that the vast majority of societies at this time period were definitely living near large bodies of water.
Well, yeah, of course, because we have to live near watercourses.
Yeah.
However, there were societies that existed before the alleged time of Noah's flood and after, and in the case of the Chinese, are still
Mhm.
living today, and they never noticed it.
Yes.
So it
So I
wasn't.
would say Noah's flood is more of an archaeological reference to something. Of course, you can use it. They justified it as the nearby cities of the people who worshipped idols being wiped out, and that was the justification, the Old Testament justification.
No, it wasn't. The Old Testament justification was that God regretted, which is interesting itself, but God regretted making humans and
After he
decided
saw,
and
Yeah.
decided to kill them all except
Mhm.
for 8 individuals.
Yep.
So did God not make the Chinese then?
No, God made everyone. I believe that
Then
that
why
completely.
then why did he not kill the Chinese?
That's why it's not literal.
But you said it was.
Oh, well, it's archaeological. Well, here's the thing: the flood itself is literal. The story of the flood, not at all. Sorry.
So there was a deluge of water that encroached on land that was inhabited.
Yes,
Well, yeah,
but
that's been happening the world over at different times, forever, for as long as there've been people, and before. So what?
only one time where it drastically affected our culture so significantly that even 20,000 years forward, we still acknowledge it.
20,000 years?
I don't know when the Great Flood happened. I haven't read up on that. I know that there's remnants such as the archipelago of whatever.
Archipelago? Is that
Yeah,
the word?
yeah. You may be drinking. I'm smoking. Yeah.
Well, I would be, but I'm
Archipelago.
in a hotel, so I'm vaping instead.
Archipelago. Yes, archipelago. Um, I know that there's archaeological evidence. Noah's flood. I know that in the Bible it was yes, God. They saw the sinners of idol worshiping, sodomizing, whatever. Which is first you have to establish what sin is and the original sin and the creation of sin and how
Well, that's a wonderful
humans,
story as well, isn't it?
yeah, of humanity becoming self-aware, self-conscious. I don't think it happened with a bite of an apple, Garden of Eden. I think it happened over a period of billions of years of guided evolution until sentient beings capable of cohesion and social thought that were actually able to live up to the image of God of what he believed was the ultimate creation or the ultimate or the end goal. How say you? Uh, yeah. So animals don't have shame. They have no concept of sin. Uh, they simply live natural, completely innocent, I guess you could say, lives. I know some animals have the ability to enact cruelty as a means, like chimpanzees, but the only animals, creatures, I would say, that have the innate ability to not only imagine but also enact great evil. You've said that you yourself are an anti-Nazi and have studied vastly on Nazism. No other species is capable of not only developing and enacting such cruelty and evil on such a large scale, but also being complicit in it, completely unaware. You know, so we do have an obligation.
I think we can redefine some of that if you don't mind,
Hmm?
or at least reconceptualize.
Yeah.
But I think that I mean you mentioned chimpanzees, and they're basically their cruelty and their violence tends to be tribal.
Hmm.
Um, they don't have the
Well,
technology that the Nazis had. If they did, I think they would also be scaling it up. There's not that much difference between us and
I
the other
think
great apes.
I think it would be a lot worse with the great apes.
I'm not sure. It might be, but I think
But
certainly
that's
they're
because
capable of it.
they'd have more natural devotion, like they'd have a more natural instinct to do this because they enact cruelty in order to intimidate other chimpanzee packs. I don't know if you know
And
about
so do
chimp
humans.
warfare and things like
So
that.
do
And
humans. I
yeah,
live in the UK. We've just had the most appalling episode in the history of my country, where people were what was it they called it? Raise the flag. And ostensibly on the surface, it was talking about being patriotic, being British. But everybody knew what it was actually about was stick a Union Jack up to make it clear to your brown neighbour that they're not welcome. And that happened all across this country. It was appalling. We have very capable of that degree of sectarian cruelty.
Uh, can you give me examples of the cruelty that's been enacted on the people of your country, though? Because, like, I can give it, like, you know, other than like, are there attacks on brown
Well, no,
communities?
I mean, I can talk about isolated incidents in this country, like people firebombing mosques and things like that.
Yeah.
But
What
I'm not
about
sure. Sorry.
I'll play devil's advocate here. What about the other side where they could say isolated incidents of these? I've heard tales of rape gangs in America,
Yeah, you'll hear lots of tales of rape gangs. Yeah.
or
Um,
even just individual rapes, or the sheik gentleman who stabbed the drunk British gentleman.
well, these things happen, of
Yeah,
course,
it's
but
isolated.
they happen regardless of what color you are. The rape gang thing is really interesting. In that it is the narrative is that all Muslims living in Britain are rapists. The reality is there is a certain minority of Muslims who know each other, and they know each other because they all attend the same mosque and who have the same disreputable interests, and they are able to facilitate each other. But they are a tiny minority of the rape gangs in this country. Most of them are white British citizens. But you don't hear
Okay.
about that part. Yeah,
Yeah, of course.
statistically,
But
it's sort
also,
of measured up.
most citizens are white British citizens. I
Yeah,
would hope. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Nationally, I think we're about 4%
Yeah,
Muslim.
I worry more about even ratios can be misguiding because like people in America will say that 13% of the population, that is blacks, commit over 50% of the violent crime. The reality is it's actually only 2% of the population. It's because the other 11% of black people don't do any crime. That's
Yeah,
fine.
yeah, and
So
you also have to
it
factor
can be
in things
misleading.
like you also have to factor in things like generational poverty and stuff like that. But there are lots of reasons for crime, and skin color really isn't that big a factor unless it's socially identified, and then um, it becomes a marker
Yeah.
for disadvantaging people. And if you, I think we've got a guy called Nigel Farage in this country. He's a big mate of Donald Trump, as it happens.
I've been watching. I've noticed Nigel Farage. I don't know.
Yeah. Well,
I don't.
I
British
remember
politics seem to irritate me more than American politics, so I avoid them both.
uh, well, I'm interested in both, but I'm scared of both, to be honest. But I
Yeah.
remember doing a video a few years ago about Farage. He was talking about how if you are an immigrant family, then no member of your family should have any benefits from the British welfare state for something like 10 years. That means your kids can't go to school.
Mm.
That means you end up with uneducated young adults who cannot find work. And then they turn to crime because what else are they going to do? And how are they going to feed their own kids in a few years' time? And a lot of the problems that we see with minority groups are the obvious, reasonable, from their perspective, reasonable result of being in a situation where they are the outcast. And if you're the outcast, you do what you can with what you've got.
Oh, I know. I've lived with with people like this. I have my own history in past.
As do
Um,
I. I was homeless twice.
yeah, I spent a year in juvenile detention. Uh,
Okay.
with that, so I spent a lot of time with living with people coming from these situations and circumstances, of course. And this was also when I was a vehement hedonist atheist. So
Interesting you put those two things together.
I was hedonistic atheist. Uh, I lived my life in a way that I saw any direct pleasure that I took it. Uh, I still tried to conduct myself with some moral bearing, like I would never steal or hurt, or I would lie and manipulate things like that. But yeah, no, I was not living a good life at that time. That's how I ended up in juvenile detention for a year, obviously.
But you put hedonist and atheist. You seem to
Mm,
put them together. Do you believe that they go hand in hand?
no,
Okay, cool. All right,
hedonism has nothing to do with theology.
cool. All right, thank you. Just because so many Christians do, they accuse me of all sorts. So,
No,
um,
I was a hedonist and an atheist,
okay,
a hedonistic atheist,
yeah.
just like you're
I
an
know quite a
agnostic.
lot of hedonistic theists as well,
Yeah,
incidentally.
yeah,
I do also know hedonistic atheists, it's true. Um, because as you say, the two things are separate.
yes. Uh, I don't think you could. I think a hedonistic Christian would be an oxymoron. I will say that, but that's just because of personal bias and beliefs in my own religion.
Well, I
But
think if you take if you take the New Testament and ignore the bits like in Matthew 5 where Jesus says you've got to follow the Old Testament as well. If you take just
he
the
said he
New
came to
Testament,
correct the Old Testament.
no, he didn't. He said, do not think, Matthew 5, starting at verse 17, do
Are
not
you
think I
quoting?
came to abolish the law and the prophets. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. And then a few verses later, verily I say to you, not one verse or sorry, not one jot or tittle of the law shall be removed until all has been accomplished. And then a few verses later, he clarifies that all that when all has been accomplished, heaven and earth shall pass away. So actually, he is saying follow the law and the prophets. Now, a Jewish rabbi means, when he says the law and the prophets, he means the first five verses of the five books of the Old Testament. He means the Pentateuch. That's what that meant. But I am actually trying to agree with you that if you ignore that and just take the New Testament, I agree. On the whole, it's lovely. I mean, Paul gets a bit misogynistic and Revelations is a bit nasty. But on the whole, I agree with you. It's quite nice. The problem is, if you don't keep the Old Testament, you have no reason for Jesus to come in the first place
Oh,
because you know
I
he's
don't
going to sin.
I don't disregard the Old Testament. Of course, I believe that a complete it's a compelling argument of why Jesus needed to come and why we should adhere the greatest moment in human history and revere it and hope for grace and
Which moment?
salvation, which would be
Which,
the resurrection of Christ.
okay, because we've got no evidence that that happened, and it's very implausible.
It seems impossible. It should be impossible.
Well, what I said was implausible.
Oh yeah. Oh, implausible?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is implausible. Anyone would say that. Even your your most devout Christian would say it's implausible.
Okay. So
But
then,
that's what makes it so great.
well, or that's what makes it so untrue. Sagan's razor is extraordinary claims, and I think you'd agree this is an extraordinary claim. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and we have none. There's no
We
evidence
have
of it.
500 eyewitnesses and
No,
who
we
are
haven't.
willing to go to their deaths for it.
No, we don't. We have a claim made by Paul, who was not there, that 500 people saw it. And the only people whose deaths we know about are Peter and, oh, who was the other one? Son of Zebedee. Was it James? No, someone, son of Zebedee. They're the only two deaths we actually know about from the time. All the rest are church tradition that started to be circulated centuries later.
Um,
That's not good evidence. And Paul, who wasn't there, claiming 500 people saw it, but he doesn't know their names and none of them wrote anything down, is a bit lame, don't you think?
I think that the Apostle Paul, his work should be taken as something that is because when Jesus died, he said, "It is done."
Depends on which gospel you read.
I read the one translated directly from the Hebrew text, so the modern American version.
No, which gospel, not which Bible.
Oh, oh,
There are four gospels, and they differ on what
yeah.
was said on the cross.
Oh,
One is said, it is finished. Another says, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do.
yes.
Another says, my God, why have you forsaken me?
Yes, he said all of those.
No, he didn't. If you think he said all of those things, you're actually creating a fifth gospel, because
There is
that's
a.
not in all of the gospels. They differ.
Hmm.
They differ on the day that he died. They differ on what he said to his disciples after he appeared. They differ on his birth narrative. They have different events and miracles in different orders.
So you can respect the practice of history, how historians piece together what we derive as the truth of the past.
Absolutely. And it's
So
nice to
so
get
you're aware
some.
of the fact that 90% of actual evidence of history is completely destroyed, just doesn't exist,
No,
never
that's
had.
not true. No, that's not true. You need
That I
some
heard.
supporting evidence for a claim.
Yes, you
So,
need some
for
sense of evidence, but there's three different types of historical evidence.
okay, go on.
So I forget exactly what they are, but the first is direct, actual, tangible evidence, and the rest is uh, essentially. Sorry, it's been a while since I've been in college. Yeah,
I mean, I'm not looking anything up, but you feel free to.
yeah, I remember now. Primary sources, which are direct sources that you can prove and see and touch and feel and whatever, which are written documents, visual things like that. Which secondary sources, which would be books or articles or biographies, which are
How do they
things
differ?
written, things written by
You
people.
seem to be describing secondary sources the same way you describe primary sources.
No, like legally, like with a primary source, it would have to be legally recognized, like notarized, and things like of that nature.
Legally recognized.
Legal
How do you
agreements,
mean what you mean?
like a treaty, uh, a letter, a signed letter, a diary,
Right,
something
because
like that.
that's not, well, diaries aren't necessarily legal.
No, that's true.
I don't really know
But
what you mean by that.
I suppose more of something that can be verified more accurately, like Anne Frank's diary. We know that that belonged to Anne Frank, whereas
Well,
uh,
but why do we know that that belonged to Anne Frank?
mm, I guess we don't. I guess so. Maybe Anne Frank's would be a secondary source of
Yeah. See, I think
historical.
we probably do.
Yeah,
But I think
good.
the reason why we do is because we know there is evidence of Anne Frank existing.
Yes.
There is evidence of Anne Frank not being around anymore. There is evidence from records of the Germans clearing various ghettos and searching hiding places. And where was she? Was it Amsterdam? I'm not quite sure where she was now. I can't remember. But there's all of this supplementary evidence that is more than just a diary.
Yes.
What
So
we have with what
that
we
would
have with
be
Jesus are books that were written by people who weren't there from another country, writing in a different language, who did not know the geopolitics of the area, and that's very clear, that contradict each other. That's not in the ballpark of decent evidence.
you could say the same things about a lot of what the Egyptologists have pieced together about what
Well,
happened back then.
except we've got we've got the tombs,
Yeah, we've got the
and we've
tombs and
got the
we've got the
mummies,
writings, but
and we've got the mummies.
we do have the mummies.
We
Here's a
don't have
question:
anything like that with Jesus.
Do you believe that Jesus was a living person, that he
I think
existed?
probably yes, but I
Yes.
don't
Okay.
believe that he was divine.
I surmised. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
but
not hard to
yeah.
work that out.
So what you're saying?
Probably.
So I would say Anne Frank's diary was the primary source of information for history. The secondary sources would be everything else you described. The people who knew, the people who could confirm that Anne Frank was real, that she was a real person, that she was
Okay.
staying here, the family, yes, and all that. And then the tertiary sources, which would be textbooks, general catalogs, indexes, things like that, and databases. But so like the tertiary, that's the tertiary sources. That's where you and I learn about history, like what happened. But
Okay.
that's because that's our source of history. Is they derived it from the primary source, confirmed it with the secondary source, and now we get to learn about it through the tertiary source. So technically, you could say the Bible is the tertiary source of history relating to Christianity or even Judaism and Islam.
Well, could you not
So
make exactly the same claim about the Quran and the Bhagavad Gita?
I don't want to talk about the Quran.
Well, but could you not make the
Unless you
same
want to.
claim? If you
Listen,
decide it's the tertiary source,
yes.
is it not as plausible as what you've just said about the New Testament?
I would say no, because there's a lot more actual like primary sources about the life of Muhammad and the life they lived.
Okay, so actually the Quran is better evidence than the New Testament.
There was better archive keeping. There was better ways to preserve primary sources and confirm them with secondary sources. And also,
Okay.
he was quite the famous warlord at the time, whereas Jesus was quite literally a homeless person.
Yeah, and yet Jesus should have been a famous warlord according to the messianic prophecies, shouldn't he?
I don't. The messianic prophets. They could have been taught. They thought they were talking about David, and David gave rise
No, they
to
didn't.
Solomon.
No, they didn't. No, they didn't. If you look at the actual messianic prophecies, they were talking about someone who would be born of David's line in David's
Yes.
town, who would be king on the throne of Israel, not
Mm-hmm.
this metaphysical king of the world. He would be physically king of Israel, and it's things like he would defeat Israel's enemies. He would see swords beaten into plowshares and stuff like
Well,
that.
yeah. It seems like
None of which happened.
warfare and bloodshed in that time, especially with among the Israelis, with the Assyrians, the Canaanites. There was a lot of bloodshed and warfare, and I
This is
think
way
that
beyond the Canaanite stuff. I'm not talking about. This is a prophecy.
yes, and I'm saying that these prophecies, I'm saying maybe these Israeli Jews got it wrong that about the specifics of their Messiah. Yeah, sure, they can believe the words of a prophet, but at the end of the day, these are the words of men.
Okay,
Words of men.
so if the prophecies about the Messiah were wrong, which is what you
They,
seem to be telling me,
saying that men can. Every person has their own interpretation of the world and what they're told and the information that they're given. And I'm
right?
saying
But
that, yeah, of course, maybe that's what they envisioned it would be. I don't know what the prophet saw. I'm not a prophet. I can
well,
only
okay,
surmise.
but nonetheless, this is prophecy in the Bible.
Yes. And
Is
prophecy.
that the inspired word of God or not? Because this is not written as allegory. This is expected,
Oh, yeah.
written and intended to be taken as literal truth.
Yes, they did intend that.
Right. Are you saying then that the Bible is wrong?
That the Bible is wrong?
Yeah, because this is stuff in the
I'm saying
Bible that
that
was intended as literal truth.
the tertiary sources of those prophets, yeah, that they were wrong. I will say that the prophets were wrong.
Okay, all right, I'll live with that. I'm
Yeah.
absolutely cool with that.
I'll say
Because
that the
what you're
life of
then
Jesus
telling me
proves
is
that.
that what you're then telling me is that what is written in the Old Testament is inaccurate about the prophecies about the Messiah.
Yes.
Okay, I'm more than happy with that. We could split hairs on it, but no, that's
Well,
where I want.
I've always, yeah, I've always wholeheartedly believed that because
Okay,
I've read the Bible, and but then I read the New Testament, and I'm just like, there's a lot of things that don't add up.
well, Kosara, because it was written by different people with
Many,
different agendas.
many different. Sorry, I have a wolf dog, so high maintenance.
Oh, hello.
Mind if I give her a snack while we continue?
I don't mind at all. Let me know when you're back.
I'll take the with me. Forgot to make sure. Oh, one second. Sorry about Stu. This is something I should have taken care of before this.
It doesn't matter to me.
I know that you mentioned about that movement. Is that movement still happening in your country? The Tommy Robinsons and all that?
Yeah. It's annoying.
Seems to be growing from this side of the pond.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's difficult to know whether they're growing or just getting louder.
Sure.
And I genuinely don't know which is which, but I am concerned that it might be that they're growing.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
this is how the Nazis began in Germany. They didn't start with jackboots; they started with flags
yes.
and
I
identifying
could
them as
definitely
a
say that
minority.
the loudest does not mean the majority. We learned that in America.
Well, quite.
Yes.
What I sincerely hope is that we do not follow you, because you are getting closer to true Nazism every day, as far as I can see.
I'd just like for us to stay on our side of the planet.
Well, that would be good too. I mean,
Be
there
nice.
are problems in the Middle East, but we're not going to
They're not
solve
my
them by bombing
problems.
school children.
They're not my problems. I'd like for us to stop funding the killing of women and children.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah,
I'd
I'd like
like
for
us
us
to
to
stop that as well.
stop paying for genocide. That'd be nice.
Yeah. We've
But
got much more in common than I anticipated, you know?
yeah,
Most of the Christians I talk to are absolutely in support of genocide in Palestine.
I'm not an evangelical.
Well, no, most of the Christians I talk to.
I adhere to the teachings of Jesus Christ, and I do not believe that the killings of innocents should ever be warranted. And I think
Goodness.
that he died specifically to prevent situations like that from happening again and to lead by example. But no, it's a shame to see people take their faith and use it to justify the mass murder of innocent people.
Absolutely. My sister is an Anglican vicar. She was ordained into the Anglican Church years ago. And she's exactly the same as you, that this is not what my faith is about.
No, it's the antithesis of my faith. Of my
Well,
faith. It's
see, I would agree. And when I was a Christian, one of the reasons I left the church is because I didn't want to hate that much. There were other reasons. Well, many more. That's not just the only reason. But yeah, I mean, like I was a young Earth creationist, fundamentalist Christian for about 10 years.
you're a creationist.
Yeah. Oh, hi. Yeah, I mean, I was well into it. I read a chapter of the Bible a day, every day. I was in church or house group at least 6 days a week, and on the day that I wasn't, I spent at least an hour in private devotion. I was really, really into the faith until I wasn't. And then I spent 2 years expecting to be damned. But I could not, in all conscience, worship what I saw as a monster. Um, I was prepared to be damned because of it. Which is why I get really irritated with Christians who say, well, you never believed and you only want to sin. Because actually, I knew what the price they think I'm going to pay was, and I accepted that rather than sin.
Well, everyone wants to sin. That's human nature.
Well, yeah, but I didn't want to hate people for being gay, for example.
Well,
I didn't want all of
Jesus
that
never
nonsense.
said Jesus never
No, I
said
agree.
anything. Jesus never said anything about homosexuals, and the only thing he spoke about was monogamy.
Yeah, I agree. But
So
nonetheless,
I don't understand how anyone, like, because the Old Testament said so. Like, I don't care what that guy said. He was
well,
in the old. He
the
was a
Old Testament, the Old
he was.
Testament didn't say so either. The Old Testament spoke about sexual
Thou shalt not
immorality,
lay with
but
a
it's
man
not fun.
as thou would a woman, something like that. It was an Old Testament writing.
Oh, yeah, you're right. There is. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're quite right. If a man lies with a man as he lies with a woman,
woman,
both
it is
should be put to
abomination.
death. But yeah, it is an abomination, and both should be put. Yeah, yeah, you're right. I've forgotten that. You're right.
Yep. Yeah. So, nope, don't believe in that. Jesus didn't say anything about that. The only the only instance I can think of Jesus advocating violence is if any of these shall corrupt or shall tempt any of these young ones into sin, which is to say, pedophiles, groomers, then they should have a millstone hung around their neck and cast into the sea.
Yeah, it would be better for them if they had not been born. That's the
Yeah.
passage, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, get that. So I mean, we agree on so many things. I think the only thing we don't agree on is whether or not Jesus was real. So give me a reason to believe it. If you
Uh,
have,
for Jesus himself.
well, I mean, I'm assuming so. You keep referring back to Jesus, so give me a
Yes.
reason to believe. Well, I mean, I've no problem with
Well,
the man existing.
I mean, I can start with the Shroud of Turin, but I'm sure you've been over the Shroud of Turin
Oh, don't.
extensively. Uh, I'll refer to secondary sources, eyewitness accounts. His mother, the Virgin Mary,
I'm from Mary.
the who I believe was his partner, Mary of Magdalene. The because
Mary
when his
Magdalene wasn't Mary Magdalene wasn't Mary's son, Mary, cousin of Margaret
huh?
or Elizabeth. Sorry.
No, there's two different Marys. There's his
Yeah,
mother Mary, and then there's Mary of Magdalene, who was one of his followers, followed him
yeah, Mary
everywhere.
Magdalene, not Mary, his mother.
Yeah, but his mother also followed him until his dying
Yeah,
day.
yeah.
So
Sorry, I thought you were saying they were the same person, and they
no,
weren't.
yeah, no, and that's also one thing I do like. You probably don't believe this, but after Christ did resurrect, he first appeared before women, and he said, "Go find and go and find the men." And they of course they didn't believe them at first, but no,
Well,
she's
hang on. At
great.
first, Mark's gospel, they ran away and told no one because they were sore afraid.
Oh yeah, yeah, right. Sorry, my pastor literally just spoke about this like a few months ago. I can't believe that. You're right. But they were terrified. I mean, wouldn't you be?
I think I'd be more curious, to be honest. But then I'm not a first century person full of
Yeah,
what Carl Sagan would call the demon haunted world.
yeah. Or the
My
person you
view is that
follow, person
if
you've
something
devoted your
strange
life
has
to
happened,
following, the person you've devoted your life to following, who you saw die, now appears before you completely healthy and fine, just scarred.
well, now hang on a minute, because if you look at the way that that story is relayed or related, um, they don't recognize him.
Oh,
This is not the person that they had followed for years. This is somebody who claims to be that person, but does not look the same.
oh yeah, no.
So, what's that about?
Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White.
Well, okay, but that's fiction.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, it's a metaphor. It's a modern way I can describe it.
Okay, but you are using an appeal to fiction to,
It was an appeal. It was, yeah, you're right. It was an appeal to
yeah,
fiction. But
yeah, you're using an appeal to fiction to
I would
dismiss
more,
a
I would
genuine
more.
question. Why did they not recognize him?
Well, the first instance was that first they saw him from behind, and so they were curious and they approached him to see this man in the garden.
The
Uh,
garden.
you know, well, he was tending to some plants or something, some flowers when they found him. They happened to come across him because they noticed that the stone was moved and they were freaking out. And so he appeared before them, and he did show them the marks on his wrists, the holes in his wrist, and he said, "Go," and then they fled. I forget the exact recollection of the 500 people he then appeared before ascending to heaven.
Right. Well, that's not in the gospel.
That's the Apostle Paul.
Yeah, Paul talks about that. Paul says, "You know this is true because he appeared to 500 people." But we don't know who the 500 were. My contention is that Paul made that up. It's rhetorical.
What about the person who acknowledged Christ? What about all the people who converted to his teachings after his death, who did see him and witness him in life and rejected him even as he died on the cross?
Well, no, hang on. As far as I'm aware, we don't have any record of a specific person who rejected Christ, saw him die on the cross, and then became a Christian. Feel free to change my mind.
There's not. I can't give you like 100% guaranteed proof that you can see, but right. There are accounts, eyewitness accounts of some of the Roman centurions.
Yeah, I mean, there's Jairus' daughter and all of that. The centurion, it says, truly this man was the Son of God and all of that. Now, here's a question. A Roman centurion would be a polytheist. Yeah?
Yes, he would. He would have been.
So why would he say this man truly was the Son of God rather than this man was a demigod?
Because they actually, their eyes were opened. I don't know if you saw something if you bore witness to something that divine, would you not completely disavow your previous worldview and theology?
There is another explanation for this, and I think it's much better and much better evidence, but it will take me a minute or two to elaborate upon it. That's okay. I will just say one thing before I start. There is a video on my channel. It'll be about a year old now, maybe a little more. I'm trying to remember what the title was. It is obvious. The title is obvious when you know what it's about. And it's about this remarkable spread of Christianity. And it basically, it's really, really generous with the maths. And I think what you work out is that
didn't really start. That really accelerated when Constantine.
Yeah, absolutely did. Yeah, 325. Yeah, the Council of Nicaea in 325 gave it a big kickstart, and the canon was eventually sorted out because that's not what happened at Nicaea. The canon wasn't Nicaea. The canon was the third council of where Hannibal came from. What was the names? To the side of the Mediterranean. It was 397. Third council of can't remember. It'll come back to me.
The Council of Carthage.
Carthage. That's it. Yeah. Third council of Carthage, 397 is when he got the canon. But anyway, what I was going to say, if you look at the Gospels, all of which are written, and bear in mind that they didn't get the names Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John until sometime in the 2nd or 3rd century, probably as a result of the decisions made by Athanasius.
Yeah, well, their names were Aramaic or Hebrew, so, like Jesus' name wasn't actually Jesus, it was Yahshua.
Yeah, it was Yahshua bar Joseph, or Yusuf. Yeah, I get all of that. But we don't know who wrote them, is the point I'm making. Because those names were attributed centuries later.
Yes.
We know that the first gospel was Mark. We know it cannot have been written before about 55 AD and probably closer to 70. We know the second was Matthew, which was written sometime in the 70s. Then you've got Luke in the 80s, and John is probably very early 2nd century. They are written in Greek, not Aramaic. So they're decades after the event. They're written by people who were not there. And the clincher for that is now, if you remember your Gospels, Mark doesn't have a birth narrative. But Matthew and Luke do, because Matthew and Luke need to get Jesus to David's town, to Bethlehem. And there is a tradition of a Nazarene. So
No,
Matthew,
John's book was written earlier, I thought.
no, John's the last
Thought-
one. That's why at the start of John, he addresses it to uh, Theophilus.
Oh, oh yeah.
And he says, there's been lots and lots said and written about this, but I'm going to give you the true story.
I know that, well, one of his disciples, I don't know if it was Matthew or Peter, they wrote down quotes from Jesus. They wrote down his words specifically.
The Gospel of Thomas, which is non-canonical, the Gospel of Thomas, it's literally
Thomas, yes.
Right. It's a list of sayings attributed to Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Equally written in Greek, not Aramaic, not written by Thomas. Thomas was an illiterate Aramaic speaker. Let me continue though, because this will absolutely.
I don't think it was Thomas.
From.
I don't think it was Thomas. It was
Go on.
I know it wasn't Simon Peter.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't.
I don't know. The 12 disciples. There was one who wrote.
I can never remember all their names either. When they come up, I can talk about them, but I couldn't list them because they saved me life.
I think it was just Matthew and John.
Right.
Yeah.
In the book of Matthew, Jesus is a Nazarene who has to go to Bethlehem, or rather his parents have to go to Bethlehem because of the census. Yeah? Mm-hmm. You familiar with that story?
Yes, I do.
No, there was a census. It's the census of Quirinius. We know that happened.
Yes.
We know that happened in 6 BC. CE. So 6 AD.
BC. Well, I mean, when you get that far back in the past, getting years and dates accurate, I feel is very hard.
All right. Well, okay, but it doesn't. The numbers actually don't matter that much.
Exactly. I give.
So let me finish. Let me continue because the numbers don't matter that much.
Yeah, I give it 100-year grace period myself, but that's a personal.
Okay. All right, fair dues. We know that according to that same gospel, the Holy Family had to flee because Herod was killing the babies under 2, the slaughter of the innocents.
Yes.
We know that Herod the Great died in 4 BC. We know there was a census, and that census was because one of Herod's 3 sons, because the kingdom was divided into 3 when Herod died. One of them, Herod Antipas, was such a bad puppet king that eventually it was decided by Rome that they would take over direct rule of his part of the kingdom. And that's why there was a census for taxation purposes. So that's 10 years late. If the Holy Family fled the slaughter of the innocents, that had to have been 10 years before the census that got them there in the first place. But the real clincher is Galilee was not in Judea. Galilee was a separate part of the kingdom ruled by a different son of Herod, and he didn't screw up, so he remained a puppet king, which meant he raised his own taxes and then gave some to Rome. So any census would not have included the people in Galilee. which is where Nazareth is. So there'd be no reason for someone living in Nazareth to go to where his ancestors had lived 1,000 years earlier in Judea for taxation purposes. You want to tax somebody, you need to know where they are, not where their ancestors were. Not only that, there is no record, and there would be, there is absolutely no record outside of the Bible of all of these people having to stop work for a few months to travel the known world to go to where their ancestors used to be. It would have destroyed the economy of the Roman Empire, and people would certainly, there were historians around at the time who would have noticed and would have written it down. So we know that bit is bollocks. Yeah, does that make sense? That cannot be so. So then we get the other one, which is Luke. According to Luke, he was already in Nazareth. His family came from, sorry, he was already in Bethlehem. That's where his family came from. But they had to flee. Again, they had to flee to Egypt so that they could say, sorry, that was Matthew was having to flee to Egypt because then they can fulfill the prophecy, out of Egypt I have brought my son. But if you look at that prophecy in the Old Testament, the son is very clearly Israel, not Jesus. But anyway, he lives in Nazareth. That's where he's from. But he went to Bethlehem. No, sorry, he's from Bethlehem, and then he fled to Nazareth. That was it. It's all so confused because these are people who live somewhere around the Mediterranean, have never been to that place. They're trying to make it fit prophecies that they don't know from the original Hebrew because they can only read Greek, so they read in the Septuagint. And for all of those reasons, they get it completely wrong in completely different ways.
So that's the second part. Okay. I'll say one thing about the first part with the census. How do you know there wasn't two censuses? How do you know there wasn't the first census to, about the mass slaughter of children, and then later, after Herod died, 10 years or so, his good son then conducted an actual census for the purpose of taxation?
Well, two answers to that. First one is it doesn't matter because in the way that the Jesus narrative is told, it's completely anachronistic. It's 10 years apart and it would have to be months apart.
Yeah.
Second one is we do know when the area that Nazareth is in, when the Galilee became under direct Roman rule. It was AD 47, which is 14 years after the apparent death of Christ.
Well, there's also contention that Herod died in 1 AD or CE.
Okay, still early.
Yeah. So he could have been the original King Herod still could have been alive doing a census, not for the purpose of taxation.
because the original Herod didn't have anything to do with the census. He was ruling Judea quite happily. The Romans were happy with him. It was his son that messed it up, Herod Antipas. He's the one that messed it up, which is why a few years later, and if you've got I don't believe it was 1 AD, but I'll go with it. If at 1 AD, Herod died, that still leaves you 5 years out before you get the census of Quirinius. And you still haven't answered why somebody in Galilee would have to go to Judea. It makes no sense. Whichever way you look at it, it makes no sense, Stefan.
May have just been a narrative to explain how a prophecy was fulfilled.
Well, I think that's the point. It's a narrative to, I'm going to just use the word, to pretend prophecy was fulfilled. But if you look at the actual messianic prophecies, not the stuff that people say are prophecies, like Psalm 22,
Yeah.
where they say, oh, yeah, piercing my hand. But actually, if you look at the original Hebrew, it's binding my hand, which is what happened to prisoners of war.
Yeah.
If you look at the actual messianic prophecies, like Jeremiah 33 or Isaiah 11, Micah 4, it's very clear that Jesus did not fulfill any of them.
No, I believe he was their prophecies of their Messiah is that of a warlord, you know,
Yeah.
that of someone of sort of like King who was the king that David usurped? The house of King Saul.
No, Solomon, wasn't it? Didn't David
No,
go
no,
after
not
Solomon?
Solomon. Solomon was David's son. David's like a
Oh, no,
the
you're right. Yeah, it was. You're right.
yeah,
Yeah, you're
Saul,
right.
King Saul. Yeah, someone like
So
him.
much to keep in your head, isn't it?
Yeah, it fucks with you. Yeah, but and that's why uh the prophet at the time, he was one of the only prophets I actually really he stripped him of his title of King of Israel, you know, because I believe that the actual prophet that did come, he was the antithesis of the prophet that the people of Judea expected, and that's the prophet that they needed, which is why I think that the complete separation and the falling of the temple, uh, that's why it's such a significant event because they expected this person to come and usher in an essentially an era of Jewish supremacy, is what they foretold. But instead, there was a man who lived a perfect life who said to embrace all and everyone equally,
No, hang on.
and
Wait,
said
wait,
that
wait, 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 wait. What
and
you're telling
rejected
me,
the Pharisees.
what you're telling me is that the Old Testament prophecies were wrong. Yeah, is
I
that
think
what you're
that they
saying?
may have been the opposite, actually, now that I think about it.
Okay, so that would definitely be wrong. Yeah.
It'd be the exact definition. Well, yeah, well, not wrong in a
In that
perfect
case,
way, wrong in a way that it had to have been preordained.
in that case, if those prophecies were wrong, where's the New Testament mandate?
The mandate,
Yeah.
the life and death of Jesus Christ.
But that's meaningless unless the prophecies foretell it, isn't it?
Well, they foretold of a prophet, or they foretold of a Messiah.
Yeah, but not that one. They're foretold of a warlike Messiah.
Yeah, but they did foretell of a Messiah.
Yeah, and they were very specific about what that Messiah would
Oh,
do and
I'm
achieve.
I'm sure that men were very specific about what kind of Messiah they wanted.
Well, see, the thing is, if you've got
You have to
whole
take into the
chapters,
account the corruption of men while writing of the scripture. In the end, the
if
Bible is still a written word of man. Like the Bible is not this
if you,
holy relic. It is a holy
well, I
it
understand
is
what
a
you're
holy
saying,
relic. Yeah.
but if you've got whole chapters of a book that's supposed to be inspired by God, saying the Messiah is going to be like this, which is why the Jews are still waiting for the Messiah.
Yes.
And then you've got little verses taken out of context because they sort of look a little bit like what the gospel stories say, and you're calling them prophecies. Does that not seem just a little bit weak to you?
Could you rephrase that? Like
All right, well, let
what
me
do you
give you
mean
an
by
example. I'm going to go to the loo and then I'll come back and give you an example. Oh, sorry about that. Thank you for that. You okay if I cut out that bit of dead air?
no, yeah, you're fine.
Yeah, cool. Um, Let me give you an illustration. which hopefully will make it clear. You are familiar, I'm sure, because you'll have seen a nativity play or been in one.
Mhm.
Um, you'll be familiar about the whole idea about a child will be born to a virgin and we will call his name Emmanuel and all. You're familiar with all of that stuff, yeah? Prophecy from Isaiah.
He was. I think they got the. There's some things that they can't get wrong. A child born
You
to a
don't think they
virgin,
got that wrong?
he will be called Emmanuel, our Savior.
So you
They
don't
got
think
that
they
wrong.
got that wrong?
Nope. Well,
Okay,
I think that they they can't get the objective parts wrong. They can get the
okay,
subject parts wrong.
right.
Just
This
like
comes
how
from,
I will say, like, because later on I'd like to transition to what I think would be another interesting conversation, which is away from Christianity and more just you and me. I'll save this for later. Sorry, but it's more like how I came to this denomination of faith, and this is why I decided to believe this specific path. And Christianity is for subjective and personal reasons. You know, I'm sure that a lot of what it was written by these people in the Bible was written for subjective and personal reasons. But if there are genuine prophecies, which I believe there were, prophetic moments, there's some things that you can't just make up or get wrong or change to suit your interests or your ideals, such as they will be born to a virgin and they will be called Emmanuel, our Savior.
okay, all right. Well, then, very quickly, do
Mm.
you know what that prophecy in Isaiah is about?
Uh, the whole thing,
Yeah.
mm, been years.
All
I'd
right.
have
Well,
to because
let me give you the context. King Ahaz is on the throne in Jerusalem. And King Ahaz has a problem because he is being besieged by two kingdoms. There is the northern kingdom, which became Galilee, that we're talking about now, and also, oh, I think it may have been the Assyrians, but there was another kingdom
I
that was
think they were the Cantonites at this point. But yeah, the
possibly
Assyrians.
may have been.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, there were two kingdoms that were
yeah.
attacking and besieging Jerusalem. And Isaiah says, ask God for a sign. And he says, I will not ask God for a sign. He says, go on, ask God. God will tell you. He says, no, I'm not going to ask God. And Isaiah says, all right. Well, it's a lovely little line. He says, is it too much that you, is it not enough that you weary men that you will weary my God also? My God will give you a sign nonetheless. There is present tense. Now, bear in mind, this is about 700 years before the birth of Jesus.
Mhm.
There is a young woman who is with child. Before that child, who will be called Emmanuel, meaning God with us, before that child learns to tell good from bad, right from wrong, the kingdom, the armies besieging you will have been destroyed. And according to the Old Testament, if you believe it, if you believe the story, that's what happened. Now, there's something really interesting in Matthew, because this is mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew. Matthew was a Greek speaker, probably somewhere in one of Paul's Mediterranean churches. He did not speak Hebrew. We know that because he was using the Septuagint, which is the Greek translation of the Old Testament. And the word used in the Greek, the Hebrew word is Alma, which meant young woman. The word used in the Greek translation is Parthenos, which means young woman or virgin. But by the time Matthew gets to read it, several hundred years after the Septuagint has been written, the word Parthenos has lost the young woman meaning and simply means virgin. So Matthew writes, a virgin is with child. But that's not what the original text said. It was not talking about a virgin birth. It was not talking about somebody being born in Bethlehem. And if you read the whole chapter, instead of just a couple of bits your pastor reads in a sermon, if you read the whole chapter, it's really bloody obvious. This has nothing to do with Jesus. And that's why people like me say he didn't fulfill any actual messianic prophecies. Does that make sense?
I suppose I can see where you're coming from with that. But I would, well, what would your definition of messianic be?
Well, my definition of a messianic prophecy would be a prophecy about the coming of the Messiah.
Which would be,
Which
who would you define as the Messiah?
Well, I think it's not up to me to define. It's up to the Old Testament to define, and they defined it as a warlord.
What does the word the Messiah mean to you?
Who cares? I'm not a Christian and I'm not a Jew. Who cares?
Well, like literally, outside of the term of theology, what would a Messiah be?
Nothing, because I don't know the word outside of theology. I've never used that word outside of theology.
What does Savior mean to you?
Savior means somebody who would, someone or something or some group that would save me or someone else from an actual threat.
From a threat in the moment?
Not necessarily.
Okay. All right.
But you are definitely making a hell of a stretch here to try and discount the fact that the words don't say what you want them to say.
Well, I would say that Messiah and Savior are one and the same. And
okay,
if you want to say, and I would say actually the Messiah is the Savior of mankind, the Savior of all of mankind. So
your definition? I don't agree with you. But okay.
So I believe that if you take that in that definition of the Savior of all of mankind, which is what they would define it as, he did fulfill every messianic prophecy. Well, not prophecy, but he fulfilled every duty of a Messiah.
Okay, so he's on the throne in Israel and he's calmed the battle. He's calmed battles and he's had swords beaten into plowshares, and there is no violence in Gaza at the moment. Then,
oh, in the earthly realm, what? No, of course there is.
Well, then he hasn't fulfilled messianic prophecy. He just hasn't.
The thing he saved us from was death itself, a life, right. A transient life of sin.
All right, Ezekiel, very clear. Read Ezekiel 37, the whole chapter, not just the odd line that your pastor thinks might fit. Basically, what you're talking about is there will be one nation in Israel with perpetual self-rule and a king of the line of David on the throne forever. From the time of the Messiah's coming.
Ezekiel, no. They use that to justify genocide these days, so.
Well, yeah, of course they do.
I try
because
to.
It's a nasty, vicious book, like same as the Deuteronomy and Leviticus and Genesis to justify genocide.
Yes.
So if you're gonna write Ezekiel off for that, you're gonna write off most of
that one. I write off one passage in Genesis, and I take great offense that they use that passage. And also, I believe that.
Then write off one passage in Ezekiel, and then look at this one, Ezekiel 37. Be consistent. Ezekiel 37, whole chapter. Yeah. Just skim read, you'll get the sense of it. But it's talking about an earthly realm with a king.
The people of Israel. See.
Look at 37:24.
This exact Son of Man, these bones are the people of Israel. This is where I would say it's subjective and wrong. The people of Israel, these are tribalistic people. He only knows that these
Of
are
course,
my people.
of
But
course they are.
no,
You are giving credence to writings of a warlike, genocidal, primitive Iron Age tribe. Look at Ezekiel 37:20. No, leave that. Forget that. Look at Jeremiah 33:17 and 18.
oh wait, I didn't. Oh, I didn't feel so. Yeah,
Okay.
this makes sense. Yeah, no, I remember this. Yeah,
And then remember that Jesus said,
Jeremiah.
the
I know that.
law and the
I know
prophet.
Jeremiah. What'd you say? 29.
Jeremiah 33,
33.
verses 17 and 18. I think the
Yep.
priests have stopped offering burnt and grain offerings, haven't they?
Nope, I don't think they did.
So there are still Levitical priests in Jerusalem making burnt offerings.
They're not priests. They're rabbis.
Okay, are there rabbis in Jerusalem making burnt and grain offerings? And is there still a king on the throne of Israel?
Yeah, there
Really?
is. Yeah,
Who's
his
that
name
then?
is Benjamin Netanyahu right now.
He's not a king.
He seems to have king-like authority
He's a prime minister.
with
He's not a king. There is no
with
king.
with the authority to direct the United States, the most powerful country in the world.
No. He has the authority to fool Donald Trump. He doesn't have the authority to direct the states, which is why
He has the
various
ability to fund. It's not
presidents
just Donald
before,
Trump. Trust me.
which,
It,
which is
it's
why which is why various presidents before Trump did not support him in having a go at Iraq.
the last the last president that didn't support Israel got shot in the head. So,
But not to invade Iraq, which Netanyahu has tried to do for donkey's years.
oh yeah, no,
So he's not a
that's why
king.
him and Obama's relationship crumbled so hard at the end. I was still very young at this time, but I remember it because I was in politics.
Yeah,
But
I wasn't. I was watching.
yeah, him and Obama's relationship crumbled so hard. But no, it's more than just Donald Trump. Donald Trump is the tip of the iceberg. Israel is in the pot. Is literally has their hands in the pockets of every single lawmaker in the country.
Be that as it may, America is not the guardian of the world,
No, of course not.
and
I don't want us to.
Israel does not have a king. And Netanyahu is not of the line of David.
Well, you don't know that, but yeah,
Well, no, I don't, but I think it's a fairly decent guess.
it's a good guess. Probably Eastern Europe or Eastern European, Western European.
So the prophecy failed.
It's the Old Testament. It's sort of fulfilled. They're still offering burnt offerings.
No, I suspect that they're not. Do you understand what
It's
burnt offerings mean?
it's in the form of people and buildings right now, but
You understand, right? So people in buildings, that's not burnt offerings because it doesn't fulfill the criteria for ritual sacrifice.
yeah.
Do you see what you're doing now? And I'm trying to say this in a friendly way, but you are jumping through hoops to try and make the prophecies fit, and they just don't.
I try not to make my faith is more in Christ than anything.
Okay. Well, look, you
I
said
would say
before I went to the loo, you
yeah.
said that you wanted to move on to something else that you wanted to talk about. I'm
Oh
more
yeah.
than happy to do that now. So, what was it you wanted to say?
Well, because we've been focused specifically on Christ, the scriptures, and things like that of nature. Uh, what I'd like to talk to you about is because you are an agnostic atheist, so I'd
Yep.
like to drop the realm of Christianity and instead move on just to the realm of theism, and
Okay.
the debate: is there a God?
I don't think so.
You don't think so? Okay.
No.
Why is that? Just because of scientific evidence, or
No, 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 no. No. Let me answer this in two ways, both of which are brief.
hmm,
First one is a quote from Carl Sagan. It's Sagan's razor. Extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. Oh, actually, I'll add one more. Another razor, which is Hitchens' razor. That which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. But then there's my own, which I'm not pretentious enough to call a razor, but this is my stock answer.
hmm,
I do not know that there is not some snivelling, cowardly deity hiding behind an asteroid somewhere near Betelgeuse, but I have no reason to believe it. I'm an agnostic atheist. I do
fair
not
enough.
know, but I do
Yeah,
not believe.
one of my favorite authors of all time is actually an agnostic atheist. His name was Piers Anthony, or is Piers Anthony. I believe he's still alive, just quite old. But always in his author's notes after his novels, when he wrote a series of about physical incarnations of things such as death and fate and time and their existence, and in his hypothetical world where God and Satan are real and they show themselves to be real in the physical. And that's how, because so there is physical proof, so you can't be an atheist. In fact, sorry, getting off topic, but
I was just thinking,
I would say
haven't seen
I
any
would
of this
object
physical proof.
to uh, to Carl Sagan's original argument that extraordinary claims require extraordinary proof. I would make the cosmological argument.
Extraordinary evidence,
Hmm?
not proof evidence.
Extraordinary evidence. Well, I guess I would first revert to the cosmological argument of the first cause, how everything started. You do agree that not something can't come from nothing, correct?
I don't know.
You don't know?
Well, we've got some very interesting information about quarks
Yeah.
appear to come from nothing. Now, that doesn't mean they do. It may be
Mhm.
that there is some cause that we have not yet been able to observe.
Exactly.
As it stands, quarks appear to come from nothing.
Appear to, yes. But
So
there
I
is
don't
still,
know
yes,
whether
but
or not.
there's
So
there
I
is still
don't know
this.
whether. Please let me say this. I don't know whether or not something can come from nothing. 20 years ago, I would have agreed with you. Now,
Okay.
I don't know.
Uh, I'll make this the establishment of first cause. There had to have been a first cause where something started,
Why?
because otherwise there would have been nothing.
Are you,
There's the
are you
first
going to give
cause.
me an example? Is this leading to the Kalam or to one
Hmm?
of Aquinas's strange versions?
Well, I would just say that the extraordinary evidence is everything around you, the very essence of the physical universe,
No, it's not. It's
the
not.
beginning of the universe.
No, it really isn't.
Okay.
That's the look at the trees argument, isn't it?
No. That'd more be no, that'd be more ontological, not cosmological.
Yeah, I agree. But if you're saying it's everything around me, well, that's look at the trees.
Yeah, but that is I don't know, pure reason, with pure reason. I don't know. Yeah, pure reason with no physical evidence would theorize that essentially something had to have come from something. That's just pure
Okay,
reason with no physical evidence.
let me frame this. And I'm not trying to pull a fast one. It's just easier to make it clear this way.
Mm.
I want to frame this in terms of the Kalam. I know that's not the argument you're making, but it will make the point tangible. Kalam cosmological argument. Everything that begins to exist has a cause for its existence. The universe has a cause for its existence. So the universe exists, therefore the universe has a cause for its existence. And then people like William Lane Craig will add a bit and say, we call that cause God, which is not part of the syllogism, but that's not the bit I'm going to argue. I want to make a point with you.
Okay.
You can add a word to the Kalam that completely changes its meaning. And that's the bit that I want you to keep. It's not the Kalam, because I know that's not the argument you're making. But every natural thing that exists has a natural cause for its existence. The universe has a natural beginning. Therefore, the universe is a natural thing. Therefore, the universe has a natural cause. Now, that destroys the metaphysical idea of the Kalam, but it's just as valid. What I'm saying is that any cosmological argument that cannot survive that addition of the word natural is meaningless.
Well, I would apply the same logic to the other way. There's no natural argument for the universe to come into being.
Okay.
Like, where did it come from?
Then that just leaves us with the only intellectually honest position, which is, I don't know, and neither do you.
I can see that.
Cool. Got any other arguments?
Sure. You seem like a reasonable man. So you say the universe definitely has a beginning and a beginning naturally.
Well, no, I didn't say that.
Begins. Well, everything comes from nature, comes naturally.
No, I didn't. I was using the Kalam as an illustration.
Oh, okay, all right, I understand that now. Well, I guess I would argue that I would make the end argument. The universe has an end design, an end game, a teleological.
How do we know?
Everything functions so perfectly and so harmoniously in such a perfect way throughout the chaos, throughout the entropy. Yeah, even throughout entropy. That
it's perfect?
Yeah. How can the creation of atoms, or the creation of molecules and yeah, of course. The very how
let me introduce you to something that you may not have heard of. Cancer.
No, that's exactly, but DNA. The very structure of DNA had to have been so perfectly organized, and it couldn't have been any other structure for it to function at all.
Why?
Even for it to exist. Yeah.
Why?
Why does it have to be a double helix?
Yeah, why?
You
do realize in the 50s, before Watson and Crick worked out it was a double helix, there was a French team that were absolutely certain that they would find a triple helix, don't you?
I had no idea about that, actually.
Yeah, that's true. Because there is no inherent reason why it has to be double. It just happens to be double.
Is there a way that it could be triple?
Well, they were trying very hard to look for it because the evidence they found suggested that it was. It's really interesting. The problem that they had, I can't remember her name, but there was a female professor, very, very well respected in the field, very good at what she did. But she was working on that team, this French professor, and she was convinced that it would be a triple helix. And nobody disagreed with her because she was so clever. And that was why the French were behind the British team in Oxford, led by Watson and Crick, because nobody disagreed. But nonetheless, there were
So
good grounds to think it should be triple helix.
I do think it's amazing that they, in theory, through theory alone, got so close to the actual truth.
Isn't it? Because
It
it
is
didn't
very
have
true,
to
but
be this
that
way.
that
It
goes to
could
show
be.
you that it probably does have to be a double helix
No,
because
no, no, no.
they
So
theorized it so perfectly.
you said something really strange to me earlier.
Mhm.
When we were talking very briefly and tangentially about evolution, and you talked about a goal or a purpose.
Yeah,
I don't remember what word you used, but it was an end game. It was a goal. It was what it was aiming for.
guided evolution. Yeah, I believe
Yeah,
that
okay, if you like.
everything. I believe that everything has a purpose, including this moment.
Okay. Now, if you were to just step back briefly from that and realize that we are not a goal, there
No.
was no great direction that led to us. Life could have led in all sorts of different directions and in a different universe or with a different set of parameters. If our world, for example, was a different distance from our sun in the solar system, not so far away that it was too bloody cold,
Yeah,
or not so close that it was too bloody hot, but
it's
somewhere different from where we are, life would be different. We just happen to be what arrives here.
yeah.
But that
That's
doesn't
why
make us purposeful.
it's too perfect. It's too perfect to be random.
But no, because it's not perfect. Because if we were 10% further away from the sun and a different life form, we could still be seeing it's just too perfect. It must be for us.
I,
But
could life survive if we were 10% further away from the sun?
oh, I don't know the percentages. I'm not a cosmologist. But if things were slightly different,
I believe
if we, please
if we were a fraction of a
let me make my
percentage.
point. Please
Yeah.
let me make my point.
So,
If things were sufficiently different that another life form survived, they could just as reasonably say, look how perfect it is for life.
but it didn't.
Right, cool. That's why we are the ones who were able to pretend that it was designed for us.
Well,
But we
it's
are one of so many planets who are circling so many suns.
stars in so many galaxies.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Just
believe.
look at the numbers. There's bound to be one where life survives.
I I think we're the only life in the universe.
I think that's ridiculously naive.
I've heard that before. I feel like that's
I
a
also think because of the nature of the expanding universe, we will never meet anyone else. So we
I've
might as well be alone.
yeah.
But I think it,
That's also because the people people are like, I don't believe in God, but I believe the aliens exist. And I'm like, all right, prove it. It's like, well,
no,
statistically, and I'm just like, all right,
no, I'm not going
but
to prove it.
show me. It's like, all right, well, then you have faith in aliens. You know, it's
Yeah,
the same as
I'm not going to try and prove
yeah,
something that I cannot prove.
yeah.
What concerns me is that you see, I will say, yeah, I might be wrong. What concerns me is religious people don't seem able to say that.
Because
And
I
then,
don't believe I am.
yeah, and I don't believe I'm wrong, but I'm prepared to accept that I might be.
I'm prepared to accept that the moment I die.
Right. And until then, you will
Until then,
continue. So, and this is the bit that is really important to me because I have a trans son.
yes. Okay.
Until then, you will continue supporting a belief system you cannot evidence that provides cover for people who want my son dead.
Those are not my people.
But you provide cover for them.
I don't believe I provide cover for them. I believe I practice a very positive, morally and outreaching religion and faith that promotes a divine creator and a divine savior, which also, in turn, if you devote a life based upon his, would lead to a life of cohesion, peace, love, and nonviolence. So I would say that they're using me to cover for them. They're the ones using. Evil people will use good people to justify their own actions.
Yeah, but you don't have to help. You
I'm not
support
helping.
the Old Testament. Do you
Do
not?
I support the Old Testament? No.
Yeah, we've just spent ages trying to tell me why the Old Testament prophecies were right, really.
Well, they were wrong, really, but yeah.
But you've just spent ages trying to tell me why they
Yeah.
were right, really.
Well,
Have you
yeah,
not?
they were right because they were so wrong. And
Right, you're still saying they were right.
I also said that the words that if a man shall lie with another man, it's abomination. As he would a woman, it's abomination. I said that's absurd.
Yeah, but you
Just
still
as I would say that
support.
anyone who uses either testament to justify any sort of violence against your child their uh, because of their chosen gender is also completely absurd.
He's
And
not a child, he's a man.
to use well, man, I'm sorry, didn't want
No,
to
no,
say.
you didn't. But I just want to be clear because this is one of the ridiculous things that people throw at me that, oh, I didn't care. My 7-year-old decided to change sex and I went for it. No, no, no. We spent about 20 years talking about it.
Did you say son? You said son?
Son now, yeah, was my
So
daughter.
yes, yeah. I was just making sure because if I know that you would if you cared this much, you would also respect your son's pronouns.
Yeah, too right. Yeah.
Yeah, of
Because we
course.
spend a lot. In fact, there is, if you're interested at all, and you may not be, I get it, but there's a video about 2 years old on my channel called "I'm a Transparent,"
I'm a
that explains.
transparent. Okay.
Yeah, because he's an activist like me. He's always believed in standing up for justice.
So if he has a child, he could be a transparent.
Yeah, but he's not going to have a child. That's not going to happen.
Well, he could adopt one. I mean,
Well, he could, but I've come to terms with the fact that my name dies with me. That's fair dues. But no, what I'm
I don't
saying,
know. Yeah.
what I'm saying, and I'm very clear with this, is when you support this, what I would consider to be abusive religion, you support all the trappings that come with it. You cannot justify that it makes sense, and yet you still support it, and that provides cover for abusers and transphobes and homophobes and
I think
sexist
I think
misogyny.
you should understand what kind of Lutheran. Um, I don't believe in the church as a whole.
Okay.
Yeah, as in using Christianity as some prime denomination to, you know, transcribe everything or to justify everything. Like I'm in I'm a I'm an I think it's like a North American Lutheran, North American Atlantic Lutheran something, but we believe in small, private, localized churches and communities and their teachings and love. And always, every time I go to a different one of these types of churches, it's the same type of environment, which we do. Like, I've been to Guatemala to help do with a mission trip there, and it wasn't even really Christ related. It was more to just provide substitute father figures for kids for a couple of weeks, um, just things like that. But no, using grandstanding on a religion to justify any sort of action is absurd and selfish, and also something that Christ preached against. using yeah, I forget his exact words, but uh, like how those ladies were praying over Trump, things like that, demonstrations of
Oh,
faith
that
that
was
aren't genuine.
awful.
Yeah, the demonstrations of faith that aren't genuine,
It
that
was
aren't
obvious
actual
hypocrisy.
devotion, personal devotions to God. If it's not something that's a personal devotion or actual act towards God with yourself, then no. If it's to enact some sort of social virtue, because I believe there is objective morality. I believe in objective morality, and I believe if we all practice the same,
Nah, there's no objective morality.
see, that's where we'll have to disagree. And I believe if everyone practiced objective morality, then your son, no one would ever be a danger to your son.
Your morality isn't objective.
Huh?
Your morality is not objective.
I believe my morality is
Okay, well, where does it come from?
Christ.
Okay, so when Christ says, we'll go right back to the start of this conversation in Matthew 5, I do not think I came to abolish the law. I did not come to abolish, but to fulfill. Verily I say unto you, not one jot or tittle of the law shall be removed until all has been fulfilled. Um,
Uh,
do you believe that? Do you accept all of the law, including all of Leviticus?
no, I believe
Then it's
I,
subjective.
you're taking Jesus' words literally. Jesus never spoke literally.
Right, because that's what objective means.
But Jesus never spoke literally. So
Well,
you
I
have to
mean,
take.
I would
So no, no,
argue that
you
I
take
would
his.
argue that Jesus never said any of those words at all, because who the hell can know what he said when the people who wrote them down weren't there and were writing it decades later? But if you do not accept those words, then what you're doing is you're saying, I personally do not think that that is appropriate. That's your subjective opinion. That's why people choose different denominations. Because they go to a church that doesn't agree with their subjective opinion, so they go and find another one that does. And then they call it objective. But it's not. They've just chosen it. They've chosen a church that meets their subjective view.
Okay.
Your opinion, your morality is not objective.
Do you
No
believe that
morality.
there should be an objective morality?
I don't think it's possible to have an objective morality.
I guess that is an idealistic reality.
Yeah. Your morality is as subjective as mine and as anybody else you could wish to meet. And this whole nonsense about, oh, you can't have objective reality as an atheist. No, you're quite right. I can't, and neither can you.
Well, I think that there are things that are objectively wrong that
Yeah, but you
only
only
people,
say that. You only say
only
that because you have decided what is right. For example, I have decided that torture, for example, is wrong. So once I've made the decision that torture is wrong, based upon that, I can make an objective decision about whatever I see. You're torturing somebody, my belief is that's wrong, therefore that is objectively wrong according to my worldview.
but why is hurting people wrong?
Because, well, let me ask you a question first. I will answer this, but I want to know where we're going with it. Do you also believe that hurting people is wrong?
Of course.
Right, okay. Then it should be an easy conversation.
Yeah.
I am part of an evolved social species. My species evolved to get along with each other. There are anomalies within that, and there are tribal differences within that and all sorts, but the basic rule is hurting your neighbor, and that allows for the tribal thing and all that, your neighbor would not be part of your tribe, for example.
Yes.
But hurting your neighbor is wrong. That's why we have mirror cells in the brain, so we can empathize, so we can get a sense of what is appropriate and inappropriate. Now, there are, of course, cultural overlays on that we can hurt the other and, whatever. But nonetheless, hurting people who we see as equal or not a threat, most of us would agree is wrong. Those of us who don't agree that that's wrong tend to be called psychopaths.
Yes. Or sociopaths.
Yeah, which is, I'm a mental health nurse. To me, I don't notice much of a difference in practice, to be honest. But leaving that
You'll
aside,
notice in the next 10 years, trust me.
yeah, okay, leaving all that bollocks aside,
Yeah.
because in 10 years' time, I'll be retired, I won't care.
No, all the COVID kids will be adults, and you'll have a large influx of sociopaths into society, which is going to be horrible.
Nah, that's no. You don't quite understand what we mean by sociopath in that respect. There will be difficulties, there will be problems, but I'm
These
not.
people have zero empathy. I'm Gen Z. I taught like so. There's this
Yeah, but
rift.
you haven't studied what it means to be a sociopath, though.
No, but
No, clearly not.
I've encountered and dealt with sociopaths,
Mm.
and
You have dealt with people.
yeah,
You do in the same way that my ex-partner, who I loved very much and still get on with really well, she told me about her gaydar. She was never wrong. She could tell a gay man every time 100% right. But you know what? She'd never gone and asked them. She didn't actually get any feedback to know whether she was right or not. There is a particular way to define a sociopath, and it's not just someone you see in the street that you don't like.
no, sociopaths do exhibit certain traits though, whereas gay people don't always exhibit
Right.
universal traits.
The point I'm making is that you do not know that you are talking
No,
about
I can only
sociopath.
assume. I can only assume.
Yeah, you're making an unfounded assumption, but this is beyond the point.
Yeah.
Doesn't
Well, I
matter.
mean, based on statistics, we've all met and dealt with sociopaths and
It's okay.
psychopaths.
About
Yeah.
10% of society in the West is a sociopath.
I had to.
Oh, yeah,
I
of
had
course they are. But I
I had to
bet they're
buy.
not the 10% that you recognize.
I had to buy a book to. Yeah. Look, freaking. Buy a book. I was so intimately involved with a psychopath, just to teach me how to like get away from the mental shit that they did to me.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, that does not mean, well, regardless of that, because I don't
Yeah.
want to go down that rabbit hole. I did that a little while
That's
ago
another.
with somebody, and the
All right. I'm
nonsense.
just enjoying talking to you, Stuart. You're in a. I enjoy the wisdom of people who have more experience than me.
I have looked at this stuff. I've spent 30 years looking at this stuff.
Yeah. I've
But
even been
no,
alive for 30.
we were going somewhere with this. And I can't remember where we were going. Well,
With the
essentially,
yeah,
let me
with
just.
the hurting people, objective morality.
Oh,
Why
yeah.
yeah.
Okay. All right. I do not believe that there is such a thing as objective morality because morality is always, without exception, mediated through a mind.
I think
And the
I'll agree with
moment,
you. You changed my
right,
mind
well,
about my the wording of objective morality. You're right.
okay, cool. Thank you.
Semantically, you are absolutely correct. I believe there should be objective morality,
Well,
but I also
in
believe
mind,
that
but it's
you were right that
unattainable.
it's probably impossible.
Hmm. Yeah, so we all do the best we can with what we've got.
We
And
like
that's,
to think that everyone does. We
yeah,
like to think everyone does.
well, I would actually think everyone does, including the psychopath. They
Yeah,
do
they
the
do the
best with
best with
what
what they've
they've
got.
got.
It's just that to the detriment of others.
Well, it's just that what they've got may not be quite the same as what you've got.
Well, what they've got.
I mean, one of the things about this is a little bit of a psych lesson, if you like. One of the things about psychopathy is that it is very difficult to have any emotional experience whatsoever.
Yeah.
Consequently, life is incredibly dull. Can you imagine? If you think about it, what gives you quality of life is your emotional experience. If you have no emotional experience, life just must be awful. So the sociopath, the psychopath, will do whatever they can to feel something. And that tends to be the more dramatic. People do the best they can with what
And
they've got.
I can relate to them on that because I've been in the mindset of I would do anything to feel a different way than the way
Yeah,
I've felt for the
right.
last 3 years persistently,
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry to
but
hear that, and I'm not going to try
well,
and
no,
counsel
no, no. I'm
you,
not
particularly
no,
not when
not
something
like
is
right
going
now.
on.
Right now I'm in the best part
But
of my life I've ever
let me,
been.
but let me make this point, and I'm deliberately steering away from that, Stefan,
Yeah.
because it would be wrong to go there. Although, feel free to contact me offline if you wish to. But what I would say is, if your experience of life is so poor, impoverished emotionally, and you cannot appreciate what other people feel, you will go for the drama, whether it hurts them or not.
Yeah.
That's people doing the best they can with what they've got. And I have no reason to particularly dislike them for that. But I do have a reason to protect myself and to be part of a mechanism that protects society from them.
You're right. I have reasons to dislike individuals, but not. I'd never agree with hating on a group of people in general unless they're pedophiles.
You are a very unusual theist, in my view, because most theists um, are absolutely um, hate filled in relation to atheists
I was an
to the
atheist.
point of violence for quite some time.
Yeah, I was born into a very, very religious family, baptized, but due to a genetic deficiency, I was never able to turn vitamin B into dopamine or serotonin. So I was a miserable child, and I had autism or have autism. Sorry, uh, and so I was very, very stimulus was very hard for me, and it was also hard because I couldn't really process the emotions with any sort of feeling of happiness or gratitude or satisfaction. So I started to be resentful towards religion and God as young as 6, and then rejecting it as young as 10 completely. And so that's where, I would develop hedonism and things like that, and drug addiction because I was like, well, sweet, I can get serotonin and dopamine from other places. But be that as it may, thanks to modern science and loving and committed family, genetic testing, I found out that all I needed was to take methylfolate because my body didn't produce folate,
Okay.
which is the thing that converts vitamin. Yeah, that's basically the
Yeah.
chemical. Yeah, it's the gene. Yeah, whatever, you understand. And that I got to actually experience life as a person who can operate and function mentally in a capacity where they aren't miserable all the time without the use of drugs, sex, or any other drug, sex, or pain, whatever it took.
I'm really pleased to hear that.
Yeah.
That is so cool. Good for you.
And then I found myself back in faith. I've always been an intellectual, a man of science, tried to be at least, despite my
Can I
delinquency.
just make a point here? Because I mean, I get that there's probably more to say, but I also get that this thing that's going to go on YouTube is probably not the moment to say it. But I would like to ask you something. Will you look at a video of mine? There's asterisks in the title, but it's basically no fucks to give. And it makes the point that what helps in situations where people have problems is not religion, it's science.
Science was the start. I was still miserable, but religion was the final cure to, I would say, at least I would say it was the the first step on the actual journey.
Let me
Got
just
me to a baseline. Science got me to a baseline. Science corrected a genetic inaccuracy.
let me make a very, very brief point, but it may be one you'll think about more, or it may not. I've been a mental health nurse. I qualified in 1995, so what, 31 years. In that time, I have run myself ragged for people in huge amounts of distress, people who were floridly psychotic, people who were suicidal, people who were so anxious that they couldn't leave their own bedroom. I've done
Yeah.
all of it.
My therapist took last week off, and I think he needed it.
Please let me finish.
Sorry.
Occasionally, I have spoken to families or individuals themselves who we've got recovered, and we've got them sorted, and everything's cool, and they're back in the world, and everything's okay. And then they say, thank God I did that. They didn't. God didn't. I did that. That matters to me. Because if I hadn't spent those unpaid hours beyond the hours I'm supposed to be employed for, if I hadn't bent over backwards, if I hadn't taken on the psychiatrist, for example, sometimes at significant personal risk, and occasionally I've lost my job doing it. If I hadn't done all of that, those people would not have recovered. But they still just say, oh, thank God. No,
Thank you.
I did it. Your
No.
God just did nothing. Does that make sense?
Our God put amazing people like you in those people's lives.
No. I put me there because I decided it was worth doing. That's something that my life is worth spending on.
And
Or
I
rather, that's
and I
something
don't
that is worth spending my life on.
I don't know who to thank that you decided to spend your life on that.
Me!
Well, I did. I
Because
already
your
did. I
God
already
is
said
not
thank you.
real.
I already said
Me.
thank you. And I thank my therapist every week because people like you.
But if you end up getting to the point where there's no problem, what do you thank the therapist or what do you thank God?
I thank God already, and my therapist. So I
You
guess
thank God for the shit that you've got.
what
You thank God for the shit that you've got that you need a therapist to deal with.
I thank God for my therapist, and my therapist is a practicing yarmulke wearing Jew.
Yeah, okay, who gave you the problem that you need a therapist for?
Uh, well, I created a lot of them, but who gave me the problems? A lot of them were created by people, other people, when in my early childhood. Um, but it's up to me to fix those. It's not
Right.
up to
It's up
it's
to
not up to the
you.
people who hurt me to fix me.
Yeah, it's up to you to fix it,
Yeah, and
not up
also
to God.
genetics. But I also have great genetics, so I can't complain. You got to take the good with the bad.
Right, but who fixes it? It's you. And your therapist may help you to see the way, but you do it. And God sits back. And if you manage, he'll take the credit. And if you don't manage, he'll blame you for, excuse me, for not being good enough.
I give him the credit because he gives me the strength to do it.
No, he doesn't.
Uh, the reason I even started looking into science to get better and to that I found this genetic deformity and all this was because I broke and I turned and I said, I'm going to just give it to God. And the way I did that was I'm going to do the first thing that comes to my mind other than kill myself or hurt myself. And so that was like, okay, called my mom. I was living in New Orleans at the time and an absolute drunkard. And ever since then, and she said, okay, uh, go to church tomorrow and go to an AA meeting. And so I did. I went to church. And of course, the preacher talked about God, but deep more than that, he talked about life and in relation of the scripture of how the teachings of what Jesus said here and what he did here relate to, and he would spend like 5 minutes on that, and then the rest would be about life and how to apply it throughout life and in a positive way and in a way that benefits you and makes you a happier person, a more fulfilled person, and a better person for your family. I said, wow, I would love to be a better person for my family. And I went to an AA meeting. And then I got back into, and then I called my old psychiatrist. I got back on medication. And then he had me do a genetic test because he was like, you've always been one of my hardest cases. I've always wanted to help you. Let me get a genetic test. And that's how we found out I needed methylfolate, so on and so forth. And then I moved, and
Okay,
so it all started with religion. So
okay, so go back 200 years.
mm,
None of this stuff is available to you,
yeah,
except church. Do you think it would have worked without the
if I would
psychiatrist?
have kept going to church every single day, I think yeah, it would have worked. It would
Okay,
have
I see,
worked
I do.
differently.
I think you needed all of that human technology and human interaction and human knowledge.
Yeah, but also if it was 200 years ago, it wouldn't have been me.
No, no, but what I'm saying is that people do better now than they used to do in with their problems because we have, as humans, learned to deal with them. God is apparently unchanging, the same yesterday, today, and tomorrow.
As always,
God's got nothing new to offer.
he's
Humans
already
have
offered me.
something new to
It's
offer.
already been offered.
Humans have something new to offer. That's why, for example, where I come from in West Cumbria in the United Kingdom,
Mhm.
we used to, I'll say we, a couple hundred years ago, young women who had to work down the mines used to dose babies up with gin to keep them asleep for the entire shift so they wouldn't harm themselves, which is why we had a major alcohol problem in West Cumbria, because that was the only way that those women could survive. It is human understanding that changed that. God was the same then as he is now. And he looked at that and thought, oh, yeah, who cares? The human
He said
species,
eventually they will figure it out. God is
the human,
timeless.
right, the human species, God might be timeless, but those people weren't. They
No.
suffered.
Yeah.
The
We
human
all suffer.
species is around 250,000 years old. This instantiation of humans, the Homo sapiens sapiens, about
Mhm.
250,000 years. About,
Sapiens are 250,000 years old. I thought
about that, yeah.
sapiens were like more 120.
Okay, 100, well, okay, Homo sapiens.
Yeah. Okay.
250,000 years for Homo sapiens.
Mhm.
Which means that for a good 248,000 years, God looked down on people dying of their teeth and killing each other and raping and all of the awful things that you can think of. And basically, I'm quoting Christopher Hitchens here, but basically saying, yeah, well, what are you going to do?
He
And
gave them
then
life.
10,000 years ago, he thought, yeah, I suppose I should do something about this now.
Well,
And
would you
it's
have preferred that
still
they never
taken
existed?
until now, or very, very recently, for us to discover antibiotics in the early part of the 20th century, for example.
Mhm.
Yet he told Adam that he had dominion over all the creatures in the earth, except for bacteria, apparently, and lions.
We do, though.
No, we don't.
We have dominion over bacteria now.
We don't.
We
We
have
absolutely don't.
antibiotics.
Have you heard of multiple resistant Staphylococcus aureolus, MRSA?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, we don't have dominion over that.
No, not yet.
Well, you see, the thing is, we did have, but then we started messing about with antibiotics, and people wouldn't finish the course, and that's why we haven't anymore. Did you, because of human science, we got that, and then we lost it again because people are stupid. And you know who were the most stupid? The people who said, well, you don't need this because God will cure you. That's why we haven't eradicated various diseases because theists said, oh, no, don't take that. God will cure you. It's nonsense.
Well, the people still thinking that are thinking in archaic ways. And
Yeah,
they're
they're
choosing to think in
believing,
archaic ways.
they
And if
are
they're choosing to,
believing what their religion tells them.
uh, people are, everyone is just as capable of free thought and free will as another. We are all equally gifted with free thought and free will. And that is one of the gifts of God. And so if they use their free thought and free will to enact that and live their lives like that, so be it. I have no way to judge them or reason to. That's why I do say thank God, and I thank God every morning because God is the reason I'm even alive, or any of us are alive. He's the reason that those Homo sapiens 250,000 years ago were alive, despite the suffering.
No, it's
So
not. That's just the story you tell yourself.
it's the
But you
story I
can't
tell myself.
you cannot demonstrate that that's the case.
Hmm.
You can't
Well,
demonstrate that that's the case. You just believe it's so.
you can't really demonstrate otherwise.
Right. But that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence. I don't need to demonstrate that there is no God. You want me
Okay.
to believe it. You need to demonstrate that there is, because right now I see no reason to think so.
Well, you are correct. I do want you to believe it, but I can't make you believe it.
Well, it would be very simple. You wouldn't be about making me. You just need to give me a reason to.
um, I believe you'd be happier, and I
So
believe.
I'll rephrase that. You need to give me a plausible reason to.
I think your effect on the world would be more positive.
Okay, that's not plausible to me.
It's not plausible.
No, of course not.
Okay.
I have a way better effect on the world since I've stopped evangelizing for nonsense.
Well, I don't evangelize. I, I'm not an evangelist.
Well, okay, but effect on the world suggests an impact somehow.
Yeah, because it would change the direction of your actions, the course of your actions.
Okay. So
The
what? It would
primary
make
the
me less
primary motive.
committed to helping people
Well, if
because
you're,
I'm as
you're
committed as I can be.
I don't know. So that after you die, you can continue to have a relationship with the thing that saw fit to let you exist in the first place.
I don't want that. I don't care. I'm happy.
Then that's what you'll be. Then I can't give you a plausible reason.
Right.
If that's what
I
you
am
want,
perfectly happy with the idea that when I die, I cease to
oblivion.
be.
That's then I'm perfect. Then that I believe that's what you will be granted. I believe that
Yeah.
you will be vindicated.
So no hell then.
That is hell.
Well, no, hell is a lake of fire according to Revelation.
Revelations is basically a caveman seeing a nuclear war.
So you're
So
not into the New Testament either then.
no, I believe in the New Testament. I believe it's a caveman seeing a nuclear war and writing it down the best he can.
Okay.
And
Can I tell you what I believe?
mm,
Given that St. John the Divine was writing that on the island of Patmos, can't remember the exact name, but nonetheless, it's a name that is famous. It's an island that is famous for its magic mushrooms.
mm,
I think that's where Revelation comes from.
a bad
It's
trip.
on the hallucinogenics.
Well, I mean, the
Patmos.
biggest fear back then, the biggest fear back then, because life was so short, was death. So I suppose hell, which would be the complete lack of life, would be best associated with complete pain and sorrow.
No, it wasn't, though, was it? Not for the Jews, and we're talking about the Jews up until very recently before um, the New Testament was written, and certainly the Revelations was written, and it was Sheol. And Sheol wasn't particularly scary. It was going to be with your ancestors. And you're either asleep or you're talking to them. It's one of the two. And probably both at different times.
So you don't fear death? I know.
Shit,
I
no. I feared
no,
death when I was a Christian. I don't now.
I don't fear death.
I don't, no, not at all. So that's one thing
But
we
you
have
did.
in
But you
common.
did fear death as a Christian.
Yeah, God, yeah.
Oh, because you believed in hellfire and stuff.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no.
And I wasn't sure where I was going. I believed I was saved, but there was always that possibility that I might be wrong.
Well, I believe I know where I'm going,
Okay, cool.
and I believe that you know where you're going,
I
and I
believe
believe that
that I'm going
in
nowhere.
and I believe that two things can be true at the same time.
I think here's a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
Where does the flame go when you snuff out the candle?
Where does the flame go when you snuff out the candle?
Yeah,
It turns into the heat turns into the heat disperses into the air.
yeah. So the candle flame is no more.
The flame is no more, but the energy still exists.
Yeah, of course it does. Just like my energy will feed worms and shit like that. But I will no longer exist. I'm cool with that. I'm 61 years old. I have lived way longer than most humans who ever were born.
Yes.
Most humans don't make it to five. I'm 61. If I die tomorrow, I'm not losing out. Cool. That's the
If
end
I
of
die
me.
tomorrow, I'm losing out, but I'm
You
not
know,
scared of it.
you're not losing out at all. You look like you're about 30 to me. Is that right?
28, yeah.
Yeah, close enough. Yeah, well, you've lived way longer
Don't
than
say
the
close enough.
majority.
Ah,
But you've lived way longer. Look, I'm 61. It's close enough.
I know,
You
but
have lived way longer than most people who were ever born.
I know. I'm eternally grateful.
Yeah.
That's why
And
I'm
funnily
grateful.
enough,
I'm grateful to. I'm grateful. Yeah,
yeah,
I'm grateful to.
funnily enough, I said to you, and I'll say it again, watch my video, No Fucks to Give.
No fucks to give.
Because your Jesus does not give a fuck about kids shitting themselves to death in Africa.
I believe my Jesus very much does give a fuck.
Okay, well, please watch the video and then tell
Okay,
me this thing.
okay, I can do that. How long
But
have we been going on?
Stefan, I think we are probably on the cusp of becoming more confrontational than either of us want to be.
Yeah,
So let me just say, I have thoroughly enjoyed this conversation.
I
I
have as well.
thoroughly respect your approach to this. You have been neither offensive nor insulting. You haven't tried to parody the things I've said. And if you look at the last conversation I had with a guy called Stefan, you will see what I mean by that. And I just want to thank you
Well,
for
thank you.
being really a very, very good interlocutor. And just thank you very much. I've enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, I have as well. Thank you for inviting me to even have this conversation. It's been a pleasure. I'm sorry. Thank you for accommodating my hectic life. Let's say that.
Hey,
Uh,
we can both
much
complain about that,
appreciated.
but you know.
Yeah, it's much appreciated. And yeah, no, you've I really did enjoy this conversation. I love it's been a while since I've had a honest intellectual debate with someone on the thesis of theology and usually they just yell at me for being a Christian. They just assume that I hate people and that I think that they're going to hell and blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I usually get the reception that you get from
Yeah,
theists from atheists. So
absolutely. I just get told that I've got no morality and I'm a baby eating twat,
yeah, no, I did.
basically.
Yeah, I'm a gay hating transphobe. I don't know.
Well, thank you, Stefan.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
yeah, thank you, Stuart.
And yeah,
I know it's late
so
for you,
this
so
will be online in a couple of days. I will send you the link.
yeah, of course. Thank you so much. I'll give it. I have the rest of the day to do as I will. So I'll give the
Well,
video.
it's late for me. I'll be going to bed soon. But all
All
right,
right.
cheers.
Yeah.
Bye
Have a
bye.
good one. Thank you so much.